Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. I'm so glad you're with us wherever you are. We love you. We're grateful for you. If you're joining us on television in Santa Barbara, California, we welcome you. And we see so many of you from all over the world joining us at these different platforms, goodlifetelevision.org. There's a new YouTube channel, which is beginning to get a little traction, which is wonderful. And we see so many of you joining us on the podcast platform, which is awesome. You can search Good Life Conversations is where you find us on the podcast platforms, and then all the social media. You can follow us, and love to have you. So wonderful. So much good stuff to talk about, to dwell on. What we focus on is important. What we get to choose what we dwell on, and so these episodes we find ourselves dwelling on good stuff and really being inspired, and great stories, real stories. We don't sugarcoat them. There's suffering involved. This is planet Earth, so there's suffering involved in life, but we also get to choose what we dwell on, and there's so much hope and so many wonderful things to be talked about. So I'm so grateful. I've loved reading over the last 24 hours about my guest here. Kym Douglas is with me. Kym, welcome.
Hi, thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, so Kym, a lot of you may recognize, she's a TV personality. She's an actress. She began her kind of her acting journey guest starring on amazing shows like LA Law, In Living Color, The Bold and the Beautiful, and then she, of course, was a prominent guest sidekick at times for Ellen on the Ellen program with Ellen Degeneres, and has done lots of other things. And so she's had a really great media career. She had a wonderful marriage until her late husband passed away. She had decades, I think 36 years or 38 years or something like that, which is a major blessing and accomplishment and something to be admired in this day and age. So yeah, Kym, I'm just delighted and grateful to meet you. For number one, I just want to tell you that, and thank you for coming on. Take us back to kind of where you came from, your upbringing. And I know you kind of had your first TV opportunity. Actually, I think you were 16 or something, but take us back to those early days of your life.
Sure. So I was raised in Detroit, Michigan, and my mother and father were Scottish, and they came over here. And Detroit at the time was really thriving, metropolis of the car company. And my dad was a carpenter, my mom a homemaker, and I remember the day that I was sitting in the kitchen. I think I was like 12, and it was in the family room. We had like a little archway, and there were only 3 channels way back in the day, and they were network, and there wasn't like Cartoon Network or things like that for kids to watch. So I was doing my homework or something and watching TV, and I saw a woman come on, and her name was Jessica Savage. She was kind of a little bit before Barbara Walters or Diane Sawyer, so most of your viewers or listeners would know who that is. And she looked a little like me, Dean. She had light hair, light eyes, and I thought, and she was a woman. And at the time, it was like Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather, and I only saw men giving the news. And so I turned to my mother through this archway, and she was making the dinner. And I said, Mom, I want to do that when I grow up. And so she was stirring the stew, I remember, and she looked over at me and she said, well, then you will. And she went right back to stirring. And what's so interesting about that, Dean, is that maybe not everybody has a mother like that in their life, but you can always find somebody in your life that will kind of just say, well, then you will. And find those people and put them around your life, because they're not the naysayers. Because what my mom really should have said is, Kym, you're 12, you're in Detroit, your dad's a carpenter. The odds of you, we know 0 people in the news or television business. The odds of you, honey, getting out of Detroit and not working on the assembly line are slim to none. So get with it and, go over to Ford or GM. But she didn't. And so therefore, I didn't put those restrictions on myself. And so I just moved forward like, I will. And funny enough, I did.
Unbelievable. What a great story.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard somebody who said to me one time, there's no such thing as false hope. There is false despair.
Yes. Oh,
Sometimes I think yeah, there can be such a hope being like kind of a joyful expectation of good, like your mom saying, well, then you will. Yes. Yes. Sometimes I think we need to hear that. We need to hear somebody with a hopeful word.
oh my gosh. And isn't it true? Like, seriously, Dean, you turn on the news, you turn on your podcast, whatever, and it's like death and destruction. I
Yeah,
mean, every
right.
minute of every day, it's just like, and here's the kicker. And again, another takeaway for your viewers and listeners. I was in the news business and I did get into it from that story. And I remember there's this philosophy that we live by, and they still do today, by the way, no matter what news you watch. And it's called if it bleeds, it leads. And that means if there's blood and guts and an accident, or the more, then that's going to be the lead story. We're going to drag them in with the blood and the guts and the negativity. So you're so right. I think that message of hope is what we really all need to start putting in, more than what we're getting thrown at us constantly.
Yeah, yeah. And perspective,
Yeah,
perspective is so important. Yeah, that's really neat. So where did your TV journey? I mean, so take us from that
sure.
conversation till,
Yeah.
to age 16 and then beyond, kind of how
Yep.
you got started.
Right. So, remember, now I planted in my head, I'm going to. So the day I had known that we lived in a small area and I knew the local station was fairly nearby, the day I got my driver's license, I got my dad's car and I drove to the local news station. I told my mom and dad what I was doing and they were like, okay. And I drove in, and this is how, God does work in our lives. And we really do have this beautiful tapestry that is all preordained as well. And I drove in there with only gumption. That's all I had. And I went to the front desk, didn't even know what that, and there was a receptionist there. And I said, I'm here for an interview because I would like to do whatever I need to do to get into the news business. So I would like to volunteer to get coffee or clean toilets or sweep floors or whatever is available. I would be willing to volunteer and do that as part of an internship for my high school. And the receptionist was kind of like, never seen this before. So he called the personnel director. And I remember her name to this day. I remember the woman. It was so divine appointment. Her name was Mrs. Peterson. And she walked out in her little, like, I don't know if it was, but it was like a Chanel suit. And she was very proper and had her, little bob cut. And she came out, she kind of smiled and she said, so what is your name? And I told, my name's Kimberly Bankier at the time. And she said, come on into my office. So I went in, she said, what are you doing here? How old are you? And I told her, my mom said that I could be in news and that's what I want to do. And she said, well, I don't really have anything here for you, Kimberly, but I'm going to tell you a little story. Oh my goodness, I'm going to get a little emotional. She said, I was 16, and she said, I have a daughter at home, and her name is Kimberly, and she is paralyzed from the waist down, and she can't walk. But if she could, I would love for her to be able to walk into a place like this and ask for what you just did. So I don't have a spot for you, but we have tours that come in, senior citizens, Girl Scout, Boy Scouts, and I'm going to make a position of a tour guide, and I'm going to make you our tour guide, and you're going to start tomorrow, and I'm going to pay you. So you go home and you tell your mom and dad that you're a tour guide for WLUC, the CBS affiliate in Detroit, at 16 years old, and you're going to make it in news. And I left and I had a job. So what happened there, Dean, is God placed me that I literally was a tour guide around the entire news station. So at 16, I got to know the inner workings of all of news. And every day I was in front of the news director. So I would take these tours through and I would show them. And the news director would see me and know me. And one day I got up the courage to go up to him and I said, you know, I want to one day be a news reporter like you have here. And he said, after many months and years, he said, well, Kym, here's what you need to do. You need to go to this school. You need to get this degree. You need to get these grades. You need to get a tape. And if you do all that, when you graduate, you come here and I guarantee you, I'll give you a job. So I left that summer. I'm sure he thought he'd never see me again. 4 years later, I came to the station. Mrs. Peterson was still there. And I walked up to the news director and I handed him my diploma and I handed him my TV tape that I had made and I handed him my grades. And I said, you promised me 4 years ago you'd give me a job. I did everything you said. I want that job. And he hired me. And I graduated on Friday and I started working as a news reporter at 21 at the seventh largest market in the nation on Monday.
Wow. How great.
Yeah. So
And so you were in.
I was in, yeah. Now I was a per diem. I was making like $5 and I was getting, the stories about, Janie down the street who has a new hay farm or something. But I was in, and I was a news reporter and I didn't throw away that opportunity. I stayed and I worked hard and I stayed a little extra late and I came in a little extra early. And then after a few months of that, I knew I wanted to be an anchor. So the news director helped me apply to, because he said to me, he said, Kym, look, you don't have enough experience for me to put you into being a lead news reporter, and you're not going to be an anchor for a long time. So he said, why don't you go to a smaller market? And if you guys know, if you're from Michigan, it's a mitten, and up on the top is this very small part called the Upper Peninsula. And there's very few people up there, and it's very cold, and nobody goes up there. And so I applied for a position up there, and I became a news anchor at 21 in the Upper Peninsula, WLUC, and it was a CBS affiliate up in Marquette. And then my first interview was with a man named Jerry Douglas, who was on a show called The Young and the Restless. It was an affiliate. And I interviewed him. And 6 months later, we were married. And the joke goes, thank God I didn't interview like Charles Manson or Chubby Checker. I would have been married to them. It was a good interview.
Right. Right.
So,
Wow.
later, we were married, and I found myself from Marquette, right? Like station number 399 out of 400. And then I was in LA, second largest market in the nation. So Jerry and I got married, and we were married for almost 40 years, as you said. He played John Abbott on The Young and the Restless. And I came out here, and it was a big whirlwind of a change, but we had a wonderful marriage, and he just recently passed away a year ago. And it was a very big loss in my life.
Oh, I bet. I bet. So, and I want to go back to that in a second. So when you got to LA, did you start, you didn't anchor again. Did you start acting? Is that when you started acting?
Yeah. So I wanted to anchor, Dean, and they were like, I would go to, the news channels like you guys have here. I know one of your news anchors up in Santa Barbara, Tracy Lear, if you know.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
she's
yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And a good friend. So I went to the local news stations with my tape or whatever. I got an agent, and they were like, wait, she's from where? Is she from New York? No, she's from Marquette. They're like, no, we don't want to know. And, and I understand it was like ridiculous so I could not get hired to save my life. I couldn't even get a per diem. So I every once in a while did a couple of live shots for the KABC affiliate here, but it was very few and far between. So then I thought, what am I going to do? Like, that's all I know. And I didn't want to be on a soap opera. I had an in there, but I didn't really want to do that. But my husband kind of got me an agent, and I did The Bold and the Beautiful and The Young and the Restless a little bit, but I knew that wasn't really where my heart was. So I ended up going into acting a little bit, and I went in order to get the information that if I became an entertainment reporter, I would know what I was talking about, method acting or scenes or what. I didn't know. I was covering murders, rapes, and fires in Detroit. What do I know from acting? So I did a little bit of acting, but then there was a news station, a new channel that opened up. That was when cable started, and it was called E! Entertainment. And everyone said, oh, we're sure that's going to last. It's an entertainment channel for 24 hours. Nobody's going to watch that. That's not going to work. So I interviewed there and I got a job on a show called The Gossip Show. And we were telling all kinds of gossip about everything. And it was like who's dating who and who's cheating on who. And, I'm not being judgmental, but for me, Dean, it didn't fit what I wanted to do. And I felt like these were like real people and I was sharing things that could really hurt their lives. And so but I didn't want to lose my job. I was like, well, wait. So I went to my producer and I said, when the cameras go off after I've interviewed J-Lo, let's say, I really do say to her, like, what do you do for your skin? Your skin looks amazing. Like, what do you do? And she would tell me these funny little tricks that she would do that were really affordable. And I thought, you know what, this isn't interesting. So I pitched him and I said, maybe I can ask these actresses like what their diet secrets are, their beauty secrets, and he said, you know what, that would be great. So I ended up moving out of gossip and into more beauty and entertainment. And that weaved me into writing a book called The Black Book of Hollywood Beauty Secrets. And it was all secrets from all these celebrities that I interviewed for like under $5. And then a man named Woody Fraser, who had a show called Home and Family, saw that on E! And he called me up and said, we have room for a beauty reporter on a show called Home and Family on a family channel. And then an Ellen producer, was at a book signing I had and thought it would be good for me to get on the Ellen show. And so all things kind of weaved together at that moment. And I started on Ellen and I was on the Ellen show for 19 years. And she just recently retired. So I was on Ellen and Home and Family doing more beauty and positive, stuff for a long time. And that's kind of what brings us. And then Ellen ended, Home and Family ended. My husband passed away and I got stage 3 breast cancer. So this fairy tale that I just told you about,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
fast,
Yeah.
real fast went to a nightmare.
Yeah. And so 2018 is when the cancer diagnosis.
Yes.
And so take us through that, the next year or two as you navigated that. What happened?
So I don't smoke. I'm really very, a glass of wine every once in a while with dinner. I'm not a big drinker. I do green juices. I work out. My husband and I lived a really healthy lifestyle. I was married for almost 40. I mean, everything I like in the checklist of you're not going to get cancer, I was at the top of that list. And I went in for a normal mammogram I had missed for 3 years. And then they called me and I got that wonderful call. Hi, we found something on your mammogram. Can you immediately come in? And my whole life just literally completely changed. So here I am, this beauty expert, right? And I'm talking about beauty and I have no hair and I'm green. I have no eyebrows, no eyelashes. I'm getting 18 and a half weeks of chemotherapy, followed by 7.5 weeks of radiation, just gone through a double mastectomy. And I'm telling women how to be beautiful. And that was a real shift because I was talking about beauty, but I had none and everything was taken away. And so it took me into a much deeper place of what beauty really is and what my purpose really is and what I want to be sharing with women. And I really don't venture to say that cancer was a blessing, but what came with it was very rich and deep for my life. And it changed the trajectory in a very dramatic way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So you went through that and then you ended up losing your husband. And so um just before I want to talk a little bit about suffering because it's really a big subject that I think a lot about. And but first of all, tell us about your marriage. Tell us about that journey that you all had together.
Yeah. So at our wedding, acquaintances, not friends, but acquaintances were making bets that we would last for 6 months. So he was a soap star, um doing love scenes all the time. I was 20 years younger. We were in Hollywood. We had everything going against us. Like if you were a betting man, you probably would bet against us. But here's the thing. Jerry and I matched in our moral compass, in our values, in what we felt was important, and in our love for our son that we had. And so we had the things that work, that I'm sure you and your wife have in your life, Dean. And hang on one second, I'm going to get this picture. He sits right here, right over my desk. And this is a picture of Jerry. You probably can't see because of
Oh
the,
yeah.
but he just sits
Uh,
right over me and watches like he always did. He just was really, my guide and my rock. And we had a really wonderful marriage. We really did. And we weathered a lot of storms, stepchildren, an ex-wife, Hollywood. You're in 1 minute on a show, you're out, there were a lot to weather, but we did. And I am so proud of being in a 40-year marriage and having a child or a family, and him being in an intact unit. I think it gives such a great foundation. So
wow.
my biggest
Yeah. Yeah. That, I mean, it's 40-year marriages are rare in
any
the world, but
yeah, you're
in
right.
Hollywood, you might be able to count it on one hand.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
You're probably
I
right.
mean, yeah, that's amazing. Wow. And so how was it like like the last year or two of his life? I mean, um, walk us through kind of how that ended, because I know so many people who are dealing with loss and kind of end of life stuff. What did you learn in that season?
That's a hard one. I think the word I would probably use is grace. Um, he had cancer, and it was a very bad cancer, and it was far along before they caught it. And he our marriage changed a lot because I became a caregiver rather than a wife. And he was very, very ill. So I'll tell you this one story because I want to respect him so much. But I also want to share with women or men that are going through loving or caring for a loved one that is declining. He had a hard time swallowing. So our son Hunter would come over, and he would come over for dinner a lot, and I did with friends, and I didn't want Hunter to know how bad his dad was, and I also wanted to keep Jerry's dignity. So everyone would be here, and then I would always be on alarm, on alert. And I would know, Dean, that about an hour and 40 minutes after eating, it was not going to digest very well for Jerry. There were a lot of problems. So I would say, oh my gosh, you guys, I have got the worst stomach ache. That's so, you know what? Oh, I can't believe it. I'm gonna have to ask you guys, do you guys mind? Do you guys mind going? It'll be, we'll do this again really soon. They would walk out the door, and I would time it. I would run and get a bucket, and then Jerry would start with, distress. And we would be there, and I would sit for the next 2 hours, and there would be a lot of things that would go on that I wouldn't want anyone else to see, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
want our son to see. So you have to navigate when your loved one is
Yeah.
going through difficulty. And,
Yeah.
and that changes everything, but it doesn't change the love. It just changes a lot of the other stuff that Hollywood says
Right.
is love, and it changes it.
What a powerful, what a powerful, I guess, message slash opportunity for you. in the world you've been in terms of the, this glamour Hollywood, bright lights, big city, and where everything's kind of a mile wide but an inch deep, to be taken, to be taken deeper like you have with your own cancer journey, and then going through this with your husband, and then now you've got some transition going on, professionally in terms of some of these things. I mean, because I think obviously, yeah, beauty. I mean, what is beauty? I mean, that's a
Yeah,
really good question. It's a really good question.
yeah, that really is.
I mean, we talked before we came on. I mean, about you're looking at some opportunities you've been invited, and some people have been talking to you about the opportunity to be able to share with more, especially women. Um, what, as you kind of reflect now, what is kind of your message, I guess? What's on your mind? It's really hard 4 years, 5 years. And now as you kind of sit in all this and kind of, marinate on and kind of the life experiences and the suffering and the difficulty and the what is on your mind in terms of your message and what you're thinking about?
That is such a good question. You know, I feel I'm a little scattered in that, and I wish I could get it more zoom. Because one part is that laughter is really important, and being on the Ellen Show really was important to share laughter with people. I have so many people that write to me and say, I was really down. There was some bad things going on in my life, and I didn't think I could, look up to see the ground. But I watched a few of your segments with Ellen. They really made me laugh. I saw that you were going through something, but you were still laughing, and it gives me
Yeah.
hope to be able to laugh. So there's the laughter. And then there's the love component, about beating all odds. And then there's the survivor component about, not giving up when you get hit with this. And then there's the beauty component. And then there's the kind of thing, Dean, that my whole life from when I was 12, all I wanted to do was kind of be on TV and be a shining light. And uh, and then you realize the frivolousness of that. Like before cancer and Jerry and Ellen and Home and Family, all me losing all of that, I guess I could have just gone on till I was 80, telling you that, you know what, for this season, peach lipstick's in. Next season, wear pink. I mean, I really could have probably done that till I was 80 and been the Betty White of, but all these things happened to me, and it made me re relook at everything that I thought I wanted and everything that I thought was important, and realize it. It's really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a message in the mess. you know
Yes.
i yeah, we had a special needs daughter 21 years ago, and she had a massive stroke in the womb. And so kind of, we're setting out for this, let's have a big family, and and cerebral palsy was not on our bingo card.
I
You know what I'm
know.
saying?
I
Like it's and what, this is a long story in terms of what's happened to us, but now there's been such redemption where the things that we've learned from her, like last night, I'm talking with her, she's hugging me, and she's like, we're like, I'll ask her what's on her mind. This is a girl who on paper, had like a third of a brain when she was born. I mean, it's astounding. And the wisdom and the spiritual connection and the, like, but but this was not on my bingo card. I can guarantee you, when you're a young girl and you're thinking about,
Yeah.
I'm going to be the anchor, you weren't thinking about double mastectomies and you're going to be green and without hair, like going, okay, God, what's the game plan here?
Yeah.
But then there you were, and then it takes you to a different place. Like these things, my point is this: I think these things can take us to a place we never would have gone.
100%.
And
100%.
that can be so
Deeper.
incredible.
Yes, it's deeper and it's richer because I
Yes.
realize just how surface and how meaningless,
Yeah.
that stuff is. And I really do want to do kind of what you're doing every day. You're just connecting with people on a deeper level. You're going deeper with people and not just saying, so tell me about your latest movie, Janie, or
Right.
tell me about, who cares anymore, really?
Right.
Like
Right.
nobody's watching these award shows. Nobody cares anymore. So,
Nobody cares.
right?
That needs to be a hashtag. Hashtag
Yes,
nobody cares.
nobody cares,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That is so spot on. That is so perspective. I had a mentor one time say, if I could give you a gift, I'd give you the gift of perspective.
Yeah.
Perspective is so, I posted something I think over the weekend about, one of my interviews I started, it was a pastor, and I started by saying there was somebody from Cisco Systems, one of these really smart people, who was talking about if you hold up a dime at arm's length, you're blocking out like I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but it's like something like 5 million galaxies that each have like 100 billion stars or something. Like, it's like your mind just like goes,
Yeah.
like, what? That's holding up a dime from your arm's length. Like, and I'm just going, we are so, like, do you think God can't handle my car payment? Like, I think sometimes we get so wrapped up around the axle on the stuff that, like, and then when you have a game-changing experience
Or
like
more.
what you've had, what
Yeah.
we've had,
Right.
and then I had other struggles in my life that were just like, what am I what am I actually thinking about?
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
I really do. And perspective is a great thing to say to that. You're right. And I think, Dean, the whole crux of this is that the only way I know for me that I got through the valleys, because when I was on the hills, it was great. I didn't need anybody. Everything was going so good. But I was on top of the mountain. But when the mountain fell and it was in the sea, that's when my foundation was so important. That
Yes.
my mom and dad, my little dad, who was a carpenter in Detroit and still was at that time, and my mom, and my church and my faith and my belief in God and my upbringing, that's when all that kicked in. And I remember every day after I would go get my chemo, I would drive, and you'll understand this being in Montecito. I would drive down to Santa Monica and I would park, right on the road on PCH. I would park my car and I would walk on the sand a little bit and I just look at the ocean and I would see this vast, huge, gorgeous ocean. And the perspective, which goes right back to you, would be like, if God can make that whole ocean,
Yeah.
and he can calm the seas, my cancer is so small. He can take care of that. He
Yes.
can take care of this sadness. He can take care of this loss that I'm going through because of the perspective of that beautiful ocean and the sun. And
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. And we talked about Christine Kane before we came on.
yeah.
She went through something where, same thing, where it's like, and just having that freedom and that trust, like, okay, God, I mean, number one, obviously he can heal.
Yeah.
Obviously he's big enough, and if he doesn't, then I'm healed anyways. Like
Yeah.
Christine Kane, I remember hearing her say, there's
Yeah.
option 1, 2, or 3. I'll get healed fast, I'll get healed slow, or I'll get healed in heaven. I
Exactly.
win all 3 ways. I'm
Yep.
a winner, like and
So,
that's another perspective shift. Like
yeah.
we go, oh man, and the fear and but well, I'm so I mean, I'm not happy for what you've been through, but I'm so
Yeah.
blessed to hear your perspective in all this.
It's true. And it is such a blessing because my whole career changed. Now I think from some of the materials you have. Now I do a podcast with St. John's, which is where I got all of my my surgery and everything, my treatment for breast cancer, stage 3. And I do a podcast for them, which is free, like yours, I'm sure. And it is about we interview all the surgeons and all the scientists and all the doctors about colon cancer, or, sunscreen, or have you had your body checked, or have you gone for, and so I'm bringing what I'm putting out into the world now. Again, Dean, it's not peach lipstick. It's, have you had your colon checked? Are you getting, what are you doing are you, are you getting your steps in today? It's deeper and richer, and going on to the speaking circuit, for women, encouraging and inspiring them, and talking about my faith, and writing a book that I'm going to be doing, and being on this show, called Great American Family, where they have an app called Great American Community, and I have a show called Faith and Friends. So everything's gone from gossip, beauty, Ellen, to like boom. It's like, this is the stuff that really.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Where can people find the podcast? Again, tell us the name of it.
Sure, it's called Your Healthy Dose.
Your
And
Healthy Dose. Yeah,
yeah,
I've got it right here. Here it is.
yeah,
Your Healthy Dose with Kym Douglas. Kym
Douglas,
has a
yeah,
Y in it.
with a Y. Thank you, Dean. You and
Kym
my
with a
mother are
Y.
the
Yeah.
only
Your
say that.
Healthy Dose with Kym Douglas. So this is with the St. John's Health Center Foundation, and so that's a fantastic.
Yeah,
We will check that out for sure. For
please do.
sure.
Please do.
Yeah. Yeah, the important stuff in life, the mess becoming the message. I
Oh,
think
no, you're
it's
right.
such an amazing thing that God can do in redeeming painful and difficult situations to put us exactly where he wants us to be.
Exactly. And I love what you said, the mess into a message, the test into the testimony.
Yeah.
It really is true. And I'm sure that's true with your life and your lovely daughter that you and your wife have, um, gone through. I'm sure you have a great testimony about the love that she brings to your life that you might never have had.
Well, yes. Well, we're grateful. Um, yeah, we're grateful. I've said before, the journey with our daughter has not been easy. It's not about it being easy. Like, that's not the point. But I wouldn't change a thing. Like, I actually can't imagine my
Yeah.
life without her, in the current, like, the way she is.
Yeah.
And I know that, it's a lot of people have it far worse than we do. So I'm not trying to trivialize people's suffering or pain, but it just, we're just so grateful.
Yeah.
God knew what we needed, and here he brought along this special needs child to help. But um, wow, Kym, so amazing. I can't wait to stay in touch with you. I can't wait to
Yeah.
talk more.
Let's do.
Laughter, I loved your first answer to that question. Laughter is so, I thought about this a week ago, actually. I thought about the fact that God invented laughter.
Oh, yeah.
I
That's
don't
true.
think we even think
No,
about
I
that.
don't think we do. You're right.
How
You're
great is that?
That is really great.
It's
You're
fun to laugh. Like, if we don't laugh, I mean, laughter is great medicine. I mean, laughter is great for
absolutely.
you probably know this better than I do. Yeah, laughter is, I got to be good for your health.
No, oh, it totally is. And when I would go on the Ellen show and the live audience was there and it was 350 people, and you would feel the energy of them literally before she walked out, they were ready to laugh. They were ready, and they were, just,
Yeah.
and that it is contagious. And that is the kind of energy that we should be around as often as we can, and trying to get, find the humor, which isn't always, listen, cancer isn't funny, but
Yeah.
there were funny moments. There really were. And, not having to do my hair for 3 years and just popping on a wig was really great. And, there were advantages, let me tell you. And truly how I think I read Job a lot, because I see this scripture that says that all these things were taken away from Job, And I'm not trying to say like I was Joe, but at one point I felt like it. And I remember the one thing, and this sounds so shallow, but for women, Dean, maybe it isn't the same for men, but for women, your hair is kind of your crowning glory. And I always really was very attached to my hair. And when I had none, it was just so it just felt so different for me. And it was a big struggle. And I remember praying, obviously, for my health and to be well for my husband and my son and my mother and so many things. But after all of that, I said, and Lord, if you don't mind, could you bring my hair back? Because I had heard that your hair doesn't always come back. There's certain clumps that may not come back, or it comes back really curly, or it comes back red. So you could have been interviewing me and I could have looked like Ronald McDonald, which would have been fine, but very different than my luck. So,
Right.
So I prayed and I said, Lord, can you please just bring my hair back? Would you mind? Would that be too much? And Dean, this is all my own hair. I have no extensions. I have no.
I was going to ask you that. That's your hair.
And so it goes back to Job saying, and the Lord gave him back what he lost, but he gave it back even more.
Right.
And my hair is better than it was before. And I'm 63 years old and I've been through stage 3 breast cancer. Like, how is that possible? So, and my eyebrows are back and my eyelashes, and I have a message to my mess. And I think
I
like
love it.
laughter is a great
I can't wait to see you. We need you on the speaking tour. I'm calling it. I'm calling it right now. We need you. We need you out there. You'll be right next to Christine Kane and Jenny Allen and all these amazing women. Lisa Bevere. There's so many.
They're my idols. They really are.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Well, I can see it. I can see it in my mind's eye. So make sure you say hi to Ellen for us. Tell her, we've got this talk show. We're about 3 minutes from her house. If she ever wants to come on, she should be. I tell her I'll come. I will come to her anytime, day or night. JP, I'm looking at my producer. We're in. Day or night, any day of the year, Christmas Day included. We're in.
All right. I'm going to tell her. You're really great, and she should do it. And I will let her know.
We'd have fun. I guarantee it. We'd laugh.
I know you would laugh.
We would laugh. And you can tell her also, when we had the fires in 2008, she made my kids Christmas. She had this deal she set up for like doing Christmas presents for all the people that were affected by the fire. Literally, my wife and I had already had our Christmas shopping done. So we had all like presents, and then like we got a bunch more from Ellen. Wow. She doesn't know that. And so we had like double Christmas. So you can tell her she made our like our kids really were like, oh, Mom and Dad are really going for it this year. Really, and it was Ellen. And nobody knew it was Ellen that did it. So tell her she made our Christmas 2008. Well, hey, Kym, I want to be friends. Let's stay in touch.
Absolutely.
I'm such a fan. I'm grateful for you. Can't wait to see what God has next for you.
Thank you. It was a real blessing being on The Good Life with you, Dean. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me and having something like this that talks about the good life. And like I said, that goes just a little bit deeper. We all really need that. And you know what I found in this whole journey? That I used to feel like if I projected to you or your listeners or viewers that I wasn't perfect or that everything wasn't great and fine, that you guys wouldn't like me. And what I ended up finding out is that the more I shared with you that I didn't have any hair and I was green and I'm this age and I lost my husband, and it's an authenticity, and I think people relate more. And they go, wow, you know what?
Absolutely.
She's going through something. I'm going through something. They're going, and it bonds us. So
absolutely. It's okay to not be okay.
Exactly.
No, that's so true. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you doing that. I appreciate you doing that a lot. Well, everybody, Kym Douglas. What a lady. Grateful. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Dean.
And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time.